Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to JFK 60 at the Texas Theater. We've been running a full program of content. Has anybody been here for a while? Did anybody leave and come back? Did anybody watch War is Hell earlier? Awesome, you guys rule. My name is Barak Epstein. This is Eric Steele. We did this program that we're doing today exactly 10 years ago for the 50th anniversary. Every year we do War is Hell, we do Cry of Battle. We sometimes show JFK, but we don't always do what you're about to see tonight. And I want Eric to tell us a little bit about what we're going to see tonight.
You bet. Thank you, Barak. Welcome, everybody. You are committed fans, so thank you for being here. This is impressive. 10 years ago, we thought it would be a good idea to take the Warren Commission and isolate every mention of the Texas Theater, and specifically Butch Burroughs, Johnny Brewer, and Julia Postal, two of whom were employees of the theater in 1963, and create kind of a live reading of those sections. And so what you're about to see is that work, and it's interesting. There's a lot of familiar names and locations that are really interesting, and there's something special about like hearing the words in this location. So we hope you enjoy it. Some incredible actors have lended their talents to it. Max Hartman, Mary Katherine McElroy, Chris Gardner, and Dian Bachar, who are incredible. But please enjoy, and we'll be around to talk about it afterwards. Thank you.
Your love won't last as long. Where will it lead me?
Stand and hold up your hand, please, and be sworn. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you will give before this commission will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I do. I do.
Will you state your name, please?
Julia Postal,
What is your address, please?
2728 Severs.
What has been your occupation?
Well, basically it's been theater, cashier, and office work in connection with theaters.
You've been to California. Do you work in theaters there?
Yes, sir. I worked at the Paramount Theater, the Pantages, Grauman's, RKO. I worked for the Wilshire in the office.
And how long have you been back from California to Dallas?
Oh, me. I've been there 11 years, 14 or 15 years. Really, I don't remember.
Have you been working? You are now working where?
With the Texas, really it is United Theaters, Inc. at the Texas Theater.
And how long have you been working there?
It was 11 years last November 24.
Same theater?
Same theater.
And what were your hours of work last fall?
Last fall, well, let's see. I used to work in the office, then started cutting down personnel. So I worked in the office in the morning until the box office opened at 12:45, then come down to the box office and worked until 5.
When you say worked in the box office, does that take tickets?
Sell tickets.
Sell tickets. Is there a ticket taker inside the theater?
Yes, sir. Now, during slack periods like this with school, just an usher who works the concession and tears tickets, because it's just straight through.
On November 22nd, Friday, November 22nd, 1963, what time did the box office open?
We open daily at 12:45, sometimes 4 minutes late or something, but that is our regular hours.
On this day, you opened at 12:45, November 22nd?
Uh-huh.
And on that day, did you have a ticket taker working around 12:45, 1 o'clock?
Just an usher, which, as I said, works the concession and ticket.
And what was his name?
Warren Burroughs, call him Butch.
State your name for the record, please.
Warren H. Burroughs,
Where do you live, Mr. Burroughs?
407 Montreal,
Where were you born?
Dallas.
Where did you go to school?
Wow. I'm going to private school 2 days a week, but I stopped going to public school in the 9th grade.
You quit in the 9th grade?
I stopped in the 9th grade, but I'm going to private school 2 days a week over in Highland Park.
You are now?
Yes, I am now.
And how old are you?
22.
What have you been doing most of your life? What kind of work have you been doing?
I worked at the Texas Theatre, and I helped my dad out as an apprentice. He's an electrician.
Were you ever in the Army?
No, sir. They tried to get me, but I couldn't pass. I passed the physical part, but the mental part, I didn't make enough points on the score, so the board sent me a card back classifying me as different.
On November 22nd, 1963, you were working at the Texas Theatre, were you?
Yes, sir.
What kind of job did you have?
During the week, I work behind the concessions, and on weekends, I usher.
On weekends, you usher?
Yes, sir.
During the week?
I'm behind the concessions.
During the afternoon of the week, do you take tickets too?
Yes, I take tickets every day.
You do?
Yes.
And run the concession?
Yes.
If anybody comes in there without a ticket, what do? Run them off?
I make it a point to stop them and ask them to go out and get a ticket. I failed to see him when he slipped in. So.
We'll get to that in a minute. I want to see what you usually do if someone comes in without a ticket.
I stop them and I have them go out to the box office and get an admission ticket.
On this day of November 22nd, 1963, what time did you go to work?
I went to work at 12.
You went to work that day at 12.
That day at 12 o'clock, yes.
And later, you saw a struggle in the theater between a man and some officers, didn't you?
Yes.
Did you see that man come in the theater?
No, sir, I didn't.
Do you have any idea what you were doing when he came in?
Well, I had a lot of stock candy to count and put in the candy case for the coming night. And if he'd come around in the front of the concessions out there, I would have seen him. Even though I was bent down, I would have seen him. But otherwise, I think he sneaked up the stairs real fast.
Up to the balcony?
Yes, sir. First, I think he was up there.
At least there was a stairway there.
Yeah, there was two.
Is there a stairway near the entry?
Of the door, yes. It goes straight. So you come in the door, through the door, and you go straight, and you go upstairs to the balcony.
Did anybody come in there that day, up to the time of the struggle between the man and the police who didn't have a ticket?
No. No, sir.
Later on, the police came in your place?
Yes.
They asked you if you'd seen a man come in there without a ticket?
Yes.
What did you tell them?
I said I haven't seen him myself. I mean, he might have, but I didn't see him when he came in. He must have sneaked in and run on upstairs before I saw him.
Would you please state your name for the record?
Johnny Brewer.
And how old are you, Mr. Brewer?
I'm 22.
Where do you live?
512 North Lancaster, apartment 102.
What city and state?
Dallas, Texas.
Were you born in Texas?
Born in Miami, Oklahoma.
In Oklahoma?
Yes.
When did you move to Texas?
About 2 years after I was born, my father was a foreman at a construction company, and we moved to Texas.
Where did you go to school in Texas, please, sir?
Well, I went first year in Lockhart. Second year, we moved to Houston for a year, and we moved back to Lockhart. And I went to Lockhart for about 10 years.
And you graduated from high school?
Yes.
Did you go to school after you graduated high school?
I went to Southwest Texas State Teachers College in San Marcos a year, and a year at Nixon Clay Business College in Austin.
Then what did you do?
I got married, and I quit school, and I went to work for Hardy's Shoe Store, and that was in September. And I got married in December, and I've been with them ever since.
When did you go to work for Hardy's Shoe Store?
That was in September of 1961.
Did they assign you to any particular store?
I worked at the Capitol Plaza Shopping Center in Austin for about 10 months, and then they transferred me to Dallas, and they gave me a store down on Jefferson.
In Austin, were you just a shoe salesman?
No, I was assistant manager.
And they transferred you up to a shop on Jefferson?
Yes.
In Dallas?
Yes.
What is the address of that shop in Dallas?
213 West Jefferson.
They made you the manager of that shop?
Yes.
How long have you been manager?
Since August 1962?
To August 1962 on?
Yes.
Until the present time?
Well, until the day I was made manager of the downtown store.
I want to take you back to November 22nd, 1963. This was the day that President Kennedy was assassinated. How did you find out about the assassination, Mr. Brewer?
Well, we were listening to a transistor radio there in the store, just listening to regular just a regular radio program, and they broke in with a bulletin that said the president had been shot. And from then, that's all there was. I mean, that's all we were listening to. We were listening to all the events.
Did you hear over the radio that President had died?
Well, I heard a rumor, and they said that one of the Secret Service men said that the president had been, that he died. And they said that was just a rumor.
Do you remember hearing anything else over the radio concerning anything that happened that afternoon?
Well, they kept reconstructing what had happened, what they'd heard, and they talked about it in general. I mean, it wasn't too much to talk about, and they didn't have all the facts. It seemed like they just kept repeating them mostly, and they said a patrolman had been shot in Oak Cliff.
Is Oak Cliff the area in which your shoe store was located?
Yes, sir.
All right, would you describe what happened after you heard on the radio that an officer had been shot?
Well, there was a siren coming down East Jefferson, heading towards West Jefferson.
What is the dividing street between East and West Jefferson?
It's a Beckley.
How far is Beckley from your store?
2 blocks.
2 blocks to the east or to the west?
Well, there's Zang's to the east, and the first street is Zang's, and the next street is Beckley.
The first street east is Zang's Boulevard, and the next street is Beckley?
Yes, right.
Is your store located on the north or south side of Jefferson?
It's on the north.
All right.
I looked up out towards the street and saw the police cars.
When you looked up, did you step out of the store at all?
No. I was still in the store behind the counter. I looked up and I saw the man in the lobby.
Okay, when you say lobby of your store, first let me ask you to describe. How wide is your store approximately?
About 20 feet.
All right. Is the entrance to your store right on the sidewalk?
Well, the entrance to the store is about 15 feet from the sidewalk, the front doors.
The front doors?
Yeah, they're recessed, and then there's windows, show windows on each side.
So this would be, if we would take a look at the letter U or the letter V, your doorway would be at the bottom part of the letter, and the showcases would be at the sides of the letter. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, what you call this lobby, that is the area between the sidewalk and your front door. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, you saw a man going into what you referred to as this lobby area?
Yeah, and he stood there with his back to the street.
Now, when did he go in now? What did you hear at the time he stepped into this lobby area?
Well, I heard the police cars coming up Jefferson, and he stepped in, and the police came, and they made a U-turn and went back down East Jefferson.
And where did he make a U-turn?
At Zang's.
Do you remember the sirens going away?
Yes. The sirens were going away, I presume, back to where the officer had been shot, because, it was back down that way. And when they turned and left, Oswald looked over his shoulder, and he turned around, and he walked up West Jefferson towards the theater.
Okay, let me hold you just a minute. You used the word Oswald. Did you know who the man was at the time you saw him? Had you heard that the president had been shot?
Yes, my daughter had called me at the office before we opened up and said it was on the TV. So then I turned the little transistor on right away, and of course it verified they were saying again that he had been shot.
And did you find out that he had died here, that President Kennedy was dead, or?
No, sir, I didn't.
You didn't hear that?
I was listening to KLF, and I was down in the little box office, and they kept saying that Parkland hadn't issued an official statement, that he'd been removed from the operating table, and everyone wanted to surmise, but still hope, and it was after this that they came out and said that he was officially dead.
But you didn't hear that when you were in the box office, did you?
Yes, I did. In fact, it was about the time all chaos broke loose.
And after you saw the police car go west with its siren on, why at the time of the police car went west with its siren on, did you see the man that ducked, this man that you were?
This man, yes, he ducked into the box office, and I don't know if you're familiar with the theater.
Yes, I've seen the theater.
You have. Well, he was coming from the east, going west. In other words, he ducked right in.
Ducked in, what do you mean? He had come around the corner?
Yes, and when the sirens went by, he had this panicked look on his face, and he ducked right in.
And what did you see him do after he came around the corner?
Well, I didn't actually, because I stepped out of the box office and went to the front and was facing west. I was right at the box office, facing west, because thought the police cars were stopping up quite a ways. Well, just as I turned around, then Johnny Brewer was standing there, and he asked me if that fellow that ducked in had bought a ticket. And I said, no, by golly, he didn't. And I turned around expecting to see him.
And he had ducked in?
And Johnny Brewer said he'd been ducking in at his place of business, and he hadn't gone by me because I was facing west. And I said, go in and see if you can see him. Isn't too much people in there. So he came and says, well, he didn't see him. And I says, well, he has to be there. So I told him to go back and check. We have exit doors behind, one behind the stage and one straight through. And I asked him to check them, check the lounges, because I knew he was in there. Well, he just had to be.
Now, the last time you had seen him before he ducked in, he was just standing outside of the door, was he?
No, sir. He was still just off the sidewalk, and he headed for the theater.
Were the doors of the theater open?
No, sir.
It was closed?
It was closed.
And you didn't see him actually enter the theater then?
No, sir.
You hadn't seen him go by you?
I knew he didn't go by me because I was facing west, and Johnny, he'd come from the east, which means he didn't go back that way. He'd come from east going west.
All right. Now, what happened after that?
Well, I told him, asked him to check everything.
Did you ask Butch Burroughs if he had seen him?
No, sir. I told Johnny this, don't tell him, because he is an excitable person. And just have him, go with you and examine the exits and check real good. So he came back and said he hadn't seen anything, although he had heard a seat pop up, like there was somebody getting out, but there was nobody around that area. So I told Johnny about the fact the president had been assassinated. I don't know if this is the man they want, I said in there, but he is running from them for some reason. And I said, I'm going to call the police. You and Butch go good on each of the exit doors and stay there.
Later on, did somebody point out a man in the theater to you?
No, no. I got information that a man, the police were cruising up and down Jefferson hunting for Oswald, and he ran to a shoe store, and then he came out and he came on up to the Texas. And the man came in and he told me that a man fitting that description came in to see the show, and he wanted me to help him find him. And we went and checked the exit doors and was up in the balcony, I imagine. And then when we went back, the police called him downstairs.
You went to check the exit doors?
Yes.
With the shoe salesman?
Yes.
And were the police out at the exit doors?
They came on, somehow they came on. One came in through the back and the rest of them came in through the front.
Did you see them come in through the back when you were back there?
I saw one of them, yeah.
The exit doors you were talking about were in the back or in the front?
They're at the back, and they have one main one going out to the alley, and they have one down here by the stage going out to the parking lot, and the other two are upstairs.
Did you see any struggle or fight between this man and any police officer?
No, not exactly. I just had the one door open, and that was the middle door, and I couldn't see them. That was the main problem. That was the thing.
And where were you?
I was back behind concession.
How did you get from the exit door in the rear of the theater to behind the concession?
Well, the concessions is right here, and the doors is right here, and the theater is inside, and the exit door number one is straight down this way, and another one is straight down this way.
All right, tell me what you did after you went to the exit door with the shoe salesman. What did you do?
Well, he went down to this door, and I stayed at this door.
You mean at the rear of the theater?
Yes. He went down to the rear of the theater, and I stayed at this door in case he went out one of the exit doors.
You stayed there, did you?
I stayed there for about 5 minutes, and I came back out to the concessions.
Down the main aisle?
Yes.
Were the police in there at that time?
They were in there checking to see where he was. Yeah.
Was there any struggle going on when you came back from the exit door to the concession?
No.
There was not?
No.
Did you hear or see any trouble between this man and the police?
Well, I heard a struggle from outside, but I couldn't tell.
What did you hear?
Well, I couldn't hear anything on the inside, but when they brought him out, he was hollering and raising, I demand my rights and all that.
What else did you hear?
That's about all.
Tell me what his appearance was as they brought him out.
Well, he seemed like he was mad at everybody.
He was?
Yes.
Did he shout in a loud voice?
Yes, like, I demand my rights! Like that.
How many officers were with him when you saw them take him from the theater?
I believe about 3 or 4.
Did any of them have a hold of him?
Yes, they had a hold of him. They were dragging him out. They had a hold of him, two on each side.
Or was he walking or were they dragging him?
He was walking, but he was kind of urged on out the door to the car.
Was he handcuffed?
Yes.
Were his hands behind him or in front of him?
They were behind him.
Did you ever see a police officer strike him?
No,
Did you see a police officer with his arm around the neck of this man who arrested him?
I don't believe so.
Did you ever see a police officer strike this man with the butt of a shotgun?
No, sir.
Were there any of the officers in the theater armed with shotguns?
No, sir. I don't believe so.
I think that's all, Mr. Brewer. Mr. Burroughs. Now, you first looked on the bottom floor and you did not see him?
Yes.
Well, how many patrons were in the theater at that time?
I couldn't really tell. There weren't many, but it was dark, and we couldn't see how many people were in there. It was maybe like 15 or 20, I would say at the most, upstairs and downstairs.
Together, 15 or 20?
Yeah.
And then you went upstairs. Did you see him upstairs?
No, I couldn't see anything upstairs.
Did you hear any noises there?
Well, when we first went down to the exit by the stage, we heard a seat pop up, but we couldn't see anybody. We never did see him, but we went back upstairs and checked, and we came down and went back to the box office and told Julia that we hadn't seen him.
Julia Postal is the cashier?
Yeah, and she's the one that called the police, and Butch went down to the front exit, and I went down by the stage to the back exit, and I stood there until the police came.
And then what happened?
Well, just before they came, they turned the house lights on, and I looked out from the curtain, and I saw the man.
And where was he when you saw him?
He was in the center section, about 6 or 7 rows from the back, toward the back.
Toward the back, are you sure? Mr. Brewer, do you know exactly which row he was in from the back?
No, I don't know which row.
Then what did you see?
Well, he stood up, and then he walked to the aisle to his right, and then he turned around and walked back and sat down. And it was at this time that there was no place I could see.
Did he sit down in the same seat he had been in to begin with?
I don't remember if it was the same seat or not.
Then what happened?
I heard a noise outside, and I opened the door in the alley. I guess it was kind of filled with police cars. And policemen were on the fire exits and stacked around the alley, and they grabbed me. A couple of them, they held me and they searched me and they asked me what I was doing there, and I told them that there was a guy in the theater that I was just suspicious of, and they asked me if he was still there, and I said yes, I just saw him. And then they asked me if they would point him out, and then 2 or 3 of the officers walked out on the stage, I think, and I pointed him out, and then there were officers coming from the front of the show, and I guess coming around that way, and there were officers also coming around the back.
And then what did you see?
Well, I saw this policeman approach Oswald, and Oswald stood up, and I heard some hollering, and I don't know exactly what he said, and this man hit Patrolman McDonald.
Then what happened?
Well, he hit McDonald, and then I didn't know his name, but I'd seen him quite a few times around Oak Cliff, but I didn't know his actual name.
You say this man hit Patrolman McDonald. Did you know it was Patrolman McDonald? No, then you later found out his was Patrolman McDonald, you say.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you say this man was the same man?
Well, the same man that stood in my lobby that I followed to the show.
Now, who hit who first?
Well, Oswald hit McDonald first, and then he knocked him to his seat.
He knocked who?
He knocked McDonald down. McDonald fell against one of the seats, and then he got up real quick. He was right back up.
When you say he was...
Well, McDonald was back up. He just knocked him down for a second, and then he was back up, and I jumped off the stage, and I was walking toward that, and I saw this gun come up, and he was in Oswald's hand. There was a gun in the air.
Did you see from where the gun came?
No.
You saw the gun up in the air.
And somebody hollered, "He's got a gun!" And then there were a couple of officers fighting him, and they took the gun away from him, and then he's fighting again, and then still fighting, and then I heard some of the police officers and I don't know who it was, but somebody shouted, "You killed the president, will you?" And then I saw fists flying, and then they were just hitting him.
And was he fighting back at that time?
Oh yes, he was fighting back.
Then what happened?
Well, he just, in a short time, they put him in handcuffs, and then they took him out.
Did you see police officers hit him after they got the handcuffs on him?
No, I didn't see that.
Did you see any police officer hit Oswald after Oswald stopped fighting?
No.
Did you hear Oswald say anything?
Yeah. As they were taking him out, he stopped and turned around and hollered, "I'm not resisting arrest." He said that about twice. "I'm not resisting arrest." And then they took him outside.
Was he handcuffed?
I don't know, sir, because the officers were all around him and from the rear there, and his hands were to his back.
They were? Mm-hmm. And an officer had hold of him from the side?
Yes, sir, this way.
With his arm underneath his chin?
Yes, sir.
Did he have any bruises or cuts? Did Oswald have any bruises or cuts on his face?
No.
You didn't see any?
No,
Was he saying anything?
No, sir. As I said, that was my understanding. The reason they had him like that was because he was screaming.
But you didn't hear him say anything?
No, sir. He couldn't possibly say anything the way they had him.
What happened then?
That is when I really started shaking. I had never seen a live mob scene, and that...
Well?
They said, "What is going on?" And someone said, "Suspect." And they started in this way. Just about the time I got out to the box office, back out to the box office, and they started screaming profuse language and "Kill the so-and-so," and trying to get to him, and this and that, and the officers were trying to get a hold on to Oswald. When I say Oswald, that man, because as I said at the time, I didn't know who he was, and they were trying to hold him because he was putting up a struggle. And then they were trying to keep the public off, and on the way to the car parked right out front, one of the officers was, at that time, I thought he was putting his hat on the man's face to keep the public from grabbing him by the hair, but I later read in the paper it was to cover his face. And then he got him in the car, and all bedlam so far as the public broke.
They drove away with him, did they?
Yes, sir, that one car did.
Did you ever go down to the police station?
Police station?
Yes, later, the city hall or police office?
Yes, sir. I went down to the homicidal bureau.
When?
Well, let's see. That was a Friday. I believe it was the following Thursday.
You didn't go down there that day?
No, sir.
Did you go down there the next day?
No, sir.
According to your affidavit, it shows that you signed in on the 4th of December. Would that be about right?
Was that on Thursday?
Yes, I think.
I can't remember. I think it was a Thursday.
And that was after Oswald was dead?
Yes. Well, yes, because he was killed on the 24th. Yes, because I know I didn't go down until the following week.
Now, was it after Oswald, the man brought out of the theater, was taken away in the car that the officer called and said, "I'm sure we have got our man"?
No, sir. No, the officer came out of the theater and grabbed at the phone and made that call about simultaneously as they were bringing Oswald out.
And that was when you heard that Officer Tippett had been shot?
Yes, sir.
Why didn't Warren Burroughs see him get in there? Do you have any idea?
We talked about that, and the concession stand is along here, and if you came in the other end, which we summarized what Oswald did, because the steps are immediately as you open the door there, it's been done before, kids trying to sneak in, run right up in the balcony.
You asked Warren Burroughs why he didn't see him, didn't you?
Yes, we kidded him about it anyway, quite a bit, because some people do then get by him.
What did he say?
Oh, he said at first that he'd seen him, and I says, "Now, Butch, if you saw him come in," says, "well, I saw him go out, but he didn't really see him." So he just summarized that he ran up in the balcony because if he came through the foyer, Butch would have seen him.
He was arrested, though, down in the orchestra, the second row
Third.
from the third?
3 rows down, 5 seats over.
I was trying to say the third row. How could he get from the balcony down there?
Oh, that is very easy. You can go up in the balcony and right straight down. Those steps come back down, and that would bring you in it. He wouldn't have to go by Butch at all.
Oh, I see. And he could get into the balcony without Butch's seeing him?
Yes, if Butch was down the other end getting something,
And he could go in?
he could have gotten in.
Mr. Brewer, did you hear this man as he was in the theater say anything other than, "I am not resisting arrest"?
No.
Did he say anything, or could you not understand it?
Well, he said something, but I couldn't understand what it was.
When he said, "I am not resisting arrest," was this before or after they had the handcuffs on him?
That was after.
We want to thank you all for your cooperation on this. I might ask one other question. We chatted for a few minutes when we first met before we started taking this deposition, did we not?
Yes.
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 Is there anything we talked about there that isn't recorded in this written testimony?
No.
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 Is there anything you said which is different insofar as stating the facts and what you have stated here on the record?
No.
No.
No.